Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of Killjoys. Also, really quickly, when I throw this just randomly in here, I'll throw it at the top, is the actress who plays Dutch. It's the coolest thing. If you're unaware, I haven't seen it at the time of me recording this, but in Ant-Man and the Wasp, she plays the main antagonist. I had no idea. I caught glimpses of the main antagonist's face in some of the promotional stuff, but it wasn't until like one particular commercial popped up, and then she started talking. I was like, that sounds and looks like Dutch from Killjoys. I was like, what? That's so freaking cool. I was like, what? I lost my mind. I was like, that's awesome, dude. This is kind of a little tidbit I just wanted to include it in there as well. So a great season premiere. It's kind of interesting because it has plot relevance, but it's not like going forward. But I guess, it's set up for a lot of things, because we get a little bit, because we don't know how much time has passed between season 3's finale and this premiere, but it seems like for whatever reason, Dutch was on her own and she got wounded by the lady, and Klein's bringing her back, and he's telling this story. It's basically of her and Johnny's story of how they got to where they are. Like, after, because we got the introduction last season of like kind of like their first meeting on Lucy, but now it's like kind of like how they got to where they are pretty much at the beginning of the series, essentially being Killjoys and stuff. We saw a lot of familiar faces. We see Turin pop up for a little bit. Big Joe. I knew he had a big influence on Dutch, but I didn't realize. I feel like they never really went into like how much. Obviously this is like seasons later, because it's interesting because Big Joe was like a one-off episode thing, but now it's like, oh yeah, like, you knew what he meant to the Killjoys, but it's kind of interesting to see what he means to end up for Dutch and Johnny. It's just kind of interesting to me. But nevertheless, they were hired for a job because they're basically broke, and they came to the quad to make a delivery, but it turns out, that delivery was about stealing some poison from the company, which we also have Hill popping up, which is kind of sad because it's just that's kind of a double reminder of like, oh yeah, you guys are here, but you're gone present day, which is kind of sad. Also, it was a thing that was never brought up in the episode. Why is it every time we see Pre, he has different facial hair? At first, he has a mustache and beard, which is like, what's up with facial hair? First one on the earth, now Killjoy's like, what's up with that? But then you see him later on, he only has the soul patch or whatever. Like, he doesn't have the mustache. It's like, why did that suddenly change? That seemed like that came out of nowhere, but okay. I love that Johnny tried to it's like, no, I can handle things, and tries to do his kind of like, oh yeah, steal stuff from people trying to get money, but it's like Dutch kind of had to come and bail him out, and while he was kind of getting his ass handed to him, it's like Dutch was the one that was kind of causing the ruckus and everything, kicking ass. I even love that while Big Joe was interrogating him, Johnny's answering all those questions. He's like, oh yeah, so who's that lady? She your partner? It's like, yes. Are you a couple? No. Do you wish to be a couple? No. Do you ever have sexual fantasies? It's like, whoa, what are you talking about? Do you ever have sexual fantasies? It's kind of like, I think for Johnny, it's kind of that weird thing of like, ew, no, gross. It's like, me and Dutch are not like that. And then when it came to Dutch, she would just lie, and it would kind of blink like she was telling the truth. It's like, he's like, well, it's supposed to be the latest, greatest technology. It was like, wow, that shows you how good of a liar Dutch is, if she's able to kind of convince a machine that she's telling the truth. That's pretty impressive. I guess it's all the training she went through and stuff by Klein and stuff like that. But it's kind of like, yeah, I guess it comes down to just controlling your breathing and controlling your heart rate, just controlling your body in general. So, but they take this job to find this assassin so that they can take them out. Because this will be the way to kind of clear their debt. In her case, she can't clear hers because she shot Joe, and it's like, that's not going to be something that can be forgiven, especially because it was such a public thing. But she can help out Johnny, which she cares about Johnny, which is even something like Big Joe was like, oh, what is he? He's like, oh, he's my friend. He's like, no, he's not. Which it turns out he is a little bit more, in the sense of like, there is more to Johnny than just being her friend. It kind of goes hand in hand. It's not as sinister as you would kind of make it seem like Big Joe was kind of like, oh, you're using him. Oh, he's going to be your fall guy or something. It's like, no, Johnny's much more for her. But I'll kind of get to that later on. Had that whole Crash 10-year thing ever come up before? I feel like no. I feel like that was the first time they brought it up. Essentially, which is funny, like, Crash marriages only last for 10 years, and then you go off and basically go to like a God, what was the word they use? It's kind of a retreat where you can basically bang it out with any other people and decide, oh, do I want to continue my marriage? Do I want to renew my marriage, or just call this quits? It's kind of an interesting thing. You even had the whole situation of Dutch leaving Johnny on the ship, because for her it's like all the people that are around her kind of get hurt and she didn't want him to get hurt. So it's like, yeah, Lucy, get him out of here. Which I love the whole conversation with Lucy like locking the door. He's like, dude, Johnny's like, Ship, it's been like months and you're still doing this. It's like, well, he's like, just because I, stole you. It's like, no, you didn't steal me. You failed. You're a failure. And just kind of rubbing it in his face. And she's like, I'm keeping my eye on you. But I thought it was kind of a sweet moment between Lucy and Johnny. It's kind of like their first bond, because it's like, oh yeah, like, it's like you're up here just taking orders. Like, aren't you worried about Dutch, is what he was telling Lucy. But, it's like, oh, I'm following her orders exactly. For him, it's like, that's the problem with humans and machines. Like, why he likes machines so much, because machines say what they mean. They, they're very honest. They're blunt. But humans don't always say what they need. Like, what they really feel. They kind of say this, but that doesn't 100% reflect of what they're, how they're feeling. And so, and even Johnny being like, he could reprogram Lucy to listen to whatever he has to say, but he's not going to. And she's like, why? He's like, I don't want to command you. Which I'm sure, like, well, I'm sure he doesn't regret it, but let's not forget that comes to bite him in the ass multiple times later on, because like there are situations where Dutch is able to kind of get the upper hand on situations where, like, when it comes to Lucy and stuff like that, because she has ultimate control. Like, that's the only person that Lucy will fully listen to, just because Johnny never did anything back then to kind of subjugate that situation. But nevertheless, in the long run, he, I guess that's part of the reason why him and Lucy are so close, which is so crazy, like the back and forth between them. And it's crazy to think like, oh man, they are where they are now after so long, that they care so deeply about each other. That, let's not forget, when she got a human body, was that season 1 or was that season 2? I don't remember. I feel like that might have been season 1. Might have been season 2, I don't remember. When she got the human body, or when she was kind of, her consciousness was downloaded into an android body or whatever, and they kissed and everything. So there's that. There's always been a little bit of something between Johnny and Lucy anyway, but still. It was even pretty nice, the little dance between them and stuff like that. I even love her kind of being like, the only reason why you're so desperately in need of being needed. And he's like, that's true, but it still hurts when you kind of say it out loud like that. And she's mocking the way he's dressed and everything. He's like, oh, I want a fake divorce now. Just kind of like their back and forth of them not really having their groove yet. The groove that we know that they do eventually have is so interesting. I even felt bad for that dude that like, she kind of like, flirts with a little bit, kind of gets a little rough with, just because she's checking him for weapons and trying to see if he's either the assassin or potentially a victim. What's the dude's name? Horvath. And it turned out like, oh, the dude actually messed with his bracelet because he didn't want to get matched up with anyone. I guess like whoever he's married to, he wanted to kind of keep that going. So it's like, oh, no. I it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of sweet actually, Did we ever find out who she actually was after? Did it ever come up? Because I know she came after Johnny because she knew that Johnny was, like, after her. But it's like, and that whole, like, that was kind of an interesting thing, too, because it seemed like we never really got to know much about the assassin. I can only assume that's going to be something that pops up later this season. It has to. Just kind of like, just that whole plot being set up like that. I mean, I guess it's just kind of like, oh, it set up the plot to, like, their story and everything, but it kind of still feels like there's more to it than that. It has to be. I mean, maybe not. We'll ultimately have to wait and see on that front, but still. And I love that Johnny the whole situation where Johnny gets poisoned and Lucy's like, Johnny, are you dead yet? He's like, why are you doing that? Why are you asking that? It's almost like Lucy, it's like, oh, I was just kind of, I thought you'd pretty much be dead by now. So uncaring about it. Once again, funny compared to where they are now. That's kind of a sweet moment too, when like Dutch is pleading with the assassin, like, no, let him live. But she kind of has to, like, feels like she has to kind of go back into her old ways to make this happen. She's like, she was kind of hoping to have a fresh start, but the assassin's like, yeah, that doesn't happen for us. We can't be like them. Because it's like, yeah, she kind of sees a kindred spirit in Dutch about the whole situation of, like, their upbringing and being a part of that world. It's like, you can't let go of that part. Once it's become a part of you, there's no escaping it, essentially. So. But before she could do anything to hurt the assassin, Johnny stopped her from, because it's like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to go down that path. It's like, you and me, we can just go away together, essentially, and stopping her. Because that's what, for her, this is all about, why she cares so much about Johnny, because Johnny was going to be her fresh start, because he is such a caring person. Which kind of reminds me of that line he said to Lucy. I keep doing that, but it's like, he's like, man, if I wanted to, I could just sell you, in the black market. He's like, it's such a shame that I'm so noble. It's like, I love how humble you are, Johnny. You're the best. But also, like, the fact is that, because for her, it's like, he was her fresh start because he is, like, a good decent person, and she thought maybe, because I think it's a combination of she wanted to stay around him because he is that, because he is the only friend she's ever had growing up. Obviously, Klein kind of kept her saluted and trained her for everything, but still, she never had people she got really close to. And Johnny's the first one, but once again, people around her die, and she didn't want the same thing to happen to Johnny. So, but what really got me is the fact is that the assassin had a change of heart. Was like, okay, and open. What was the antidote? Was like, wow, you had a change of heart. I guess because like what I guess you could arguably say is like the sappy stuff, just the stuff between them. I guess it kind of wore her down because it's like, oh, because she saw that Johnny actually stopped Dutch, and I guess that shows that she can change, that she isn't completely bound by this fate. And maybe the assassin kind of felt like, oh, I wish I had someone like that in my life or whatever. Like I said, I'm very interested to see whether that circles back around or not. Maybe it won't, but we'll see. It's actually kind of interesting too because Johnny's kind of the reason why she started going by Dutch instead of her a name. Because it's interesting because instead of calling her Queen, he was like, oh, Duchess, and she's like, Duchess, Dutch. And it was like, oh, that's kind of pretty neat that's how that all came about. It also seems like the reason why Big Joe kind of offered her the job is because for one was like, well, you did a good job, well done. Plus, you already shot me, so it's like being a Killjoy because of her whole background of being an assassin and everything, which I love that conversation too. I forgot earlier where she was kind of like, oh yeah, like her favorite way of killing people, and also the fact that she stole his gun. He's like, all right, give me my gun back. You're starting to creep me out. But I think it's also because of who, like, being a Killjoy could give her more boundaries to kind of work within, kind of limit her, because the fact is on her own she's probably be scared that she'd slip back into who she was before, even with Johnny. But at least as Killjoys, they'd be together, they'd be a team, and they'd be able to operate within certain rules and guidelines that they kind of have to follow. So it kind of like she put like a limiter on herself, if you want to kind of put it from like, if you want to think of it in a sense of a way to kind of like suppress like that other side of her, prevent herself from putting herself in a position where she needs that side of herself, so. But it also seems like it's because he was looking after her because of also like, well, the whole Red 17 thing, because like Turin kind of brought that up. So I mean, so I guess that kind of shows you how Turin always kind of felt, because it wasn't like until like the Davin thing in season 1, that's when he really was kind of like, all right, like I guess he always had his suspicions about like what's up with Dutch, especially like the circumstances around her being brought in and everything. But I guess it's also because it's like, obviously she had friends in higher places. We now know that was Klein and that whole situation, but nevertheless. So that was kind of pretty neat. And it seems like this whole thing was like a long story. Like the lesson she was supposed to gain from this is the fact is that no matter how lost she is or kind of how like alone she feels, always like search for John Jacoby. Johnny will always be your true north, because this is a story about the lone warrior and the thief that saves everyone, which is kind of interesting, because I think it's funny because the vice versa, kind of like obviously like Davin's kind of been the important one and stuff like that, because it's like, oh, because what he can do and what he's capable of. But let's not forget, like she met Johnny well before she met Davin. She cares about Davin, but like the connection between her and Johnny, especially Johnny's always been her rock, so I'm sure that's why even when he left, in season 2 and was going, a while during season 3, that it finally took a while. Like, missing him was probably harder on her than any other circumstance, was because of that. So, but it's just kind of interesting to think that Johnny might be the key to all of this. Whereas like, it kind of felt like Davin was the key to everything against the Holland and everything. But now it's like Johnny might be the one, because if whatever her wound is, it's spreading and it's making it so it's not Dutch's heart that he's worried about, it's her mind, because the moment the lady gets to her head, she knows everything. Because now, I guess it's because Dutch knows everything. I guess that's the big concern. Maybe not, because of all her memories and every little connection. Because she does know, well, now that, I guess it's more so about the fact is that the lady now knows 100%. Because now, Anila remembered in the finale what Klein took from her, and it's like, oh, the fact is that she could pull someone from a memory, meaning that the lady can be pulled out thanks to Anila. I guess that's why they don't want Anila anywhere near the lady, because why is Dutch going alone? That's why I'm curious, like, why aren't either one of them with her? Why is she kind of going alone? But I guess it's like, if she gets her hands on Anila, it's in game, like, because she'll be able to kind of use Anila to get out, I guess. Because I was wondering, the final scene, is that supposed to be like a metaphor, or is it just her literally out there alone? Because it's like, it's like she'll be fine as long she won't die as long as she remembers the message of the story. It also seems like Klein hid something. I'm assuming it's something similar to Davin. When Davin found the God, what was it called? The brain stems in the first place, whatever that was really called last season. Like the little hidden message he left for Davin to do that. Maybe he implanted something like that for Dutch. What exactly? We don't know. And I brought it up earlier too. We don't know how much time has passed, like since she's kind of entered this point in the green. I mean, I'm sure it's like a situation where it's like time doesn't work on the inside as well as it does on us. Because I was almost halfway expecting us to meet the antagonist like pretty early on, but it's like, no, we still don't know what the lady looks like. But we see Dutch laying there as it's spreading more and more, and you can tell that it's kind of implanting inside of her brain. So I'm curious, like, what it is that, I guess it's everything that they have planned, their offense, their fight against her here inside of the green like that. But also maybe it is the whole Anila thing. Like, maybe this is also about Klein trying to keep Anila safe for as long as possible. Like, how that's going to whole operate. I'm curious to see what that, like, are we going to see, like, the season split like that? I mean, because is she going to try and find her way back to the outside of the green to meet up with Davin and Johnny? Or is it going to be a situation of, like, are they going to find a way to her? Like, are we going to keep, like, it doesn't, I don't know if the season's going to say split like that or not, whether it's like she stays 100% in the green. Cause I feel like, because I caught glimpses of the previews, but I feel like quite a bit, the things I remember the most from it's ended up being stuff from this episode. So I'm just very curious to see how this all ends up playing out in the end, because Klein is quite the man with the contingency plan upon contingency plan upon contingency plan. So I'm curious to see what this all ends up turning out to be. It's kind of sad in the long run too, because she gave Dutch to Klein for him to protect, but in the end, it took Johnny popping up for him to save her. I guess saving her from being who Klein made her into being, Because, like, he kind of messed up with Anila, and I guess in a way, and in a certain regard, you can make the argument that he was making the same mistake with Dutch. Either way, I'm very excited to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.